MK Ultra, the CIA's mind control program. This one sounds like the plot of a sci-fi horror flick. In the 1950s, the CIA launched Project MK Ultra, a classified program aimed at mastering mind control. And how do you do that? Apparently, by drugging unsuspecting Americans with LSD, locking them in blacked-out rooms, then watching what happens. Yes, really. They dosed prisoners, mental patients, even random people in bars. Sometimes, agents didn't even know they were part of the experiment. One guy, Frank Olson, mysteriously fell out of a 13th floor window days after being secretly drugged by his own coworkers. The CIA called it suicide. His family wasn't so sure. This project ran for over a decade. Congress only found out in the 70s. Conspiracy? Nah. Just your tax dollars at work. Acoustic Kitty. The Cold War was weird. Like, let's turn a cat into a spy. Weird. In 1967, the CIA spent millions developing Acoustic Kitty, a real-life attempt to implant surveillance gear inside an actual cat. The idea? The feline would wander near Soviet embassies and record secret conversations. The first test mission? They released the cat near a Target building, and it was immediately hit by a taxi. Millions of dollars, years of research, ended in 5 seconds. The program was quietly shut down. The official reason? The environment was not conducive to feline audio surveillance. You think I'm making this up? I wish I was. Operation Northwoods. This one is straight out of a conspiracy theorist's dream journal, except it's real. In 1962, the U.S. military proposed faking terrorist attacks on American soil. The plan was called Operation Northwoods. It involved blowing up U.S. ships, hijacking planes, stagecoaching fake victims, all to blame Cuba and justify an invasion. Who came up with this? Top generals at the Pentagon. It even landed on President Kennedy's desk. He said no. Thank God. But the fact that this plan made it as far as it did? That's nightmare fuel. The Tuskegee Syphilis study. For 40 years, from 1932 to 1972, the U.S. Public Health Service ran an experiment on 600 black men in Alabama. They were told they were being treated for bad blood. But in reality, they had syphilis, and doctors intentionally withheld treatment just to study what happened as the disease progressed. They were never told. Even after penicillin became the standard cure in the 1940s, dozens died. Others passed it to their wives and children. It wasn't a theory, it was government policy. And it only stopped after a whistleblower leaked the story to the press. The Iran-Contra Affair. Okay, this one's a wild ride. In the 1980s, President Reagan publicly vowed never to negotiate with terrorists. Behind the scenes, his administration was doing exactly that. They sold weapons to Iran, a country that was under an arms embargo, and funneled the money to fund anti-communist rebels in Nicaragua called the Contras. The whole thing was illegal, secret, and when it blew up, it almost took down the presidency. Oliver North shredded documents. Reagan said he didn't remember. And the phrase plausible deniability became America's new favorite euphemism. It was Watergate with RPGs, poisoning booze during Prohibition. You thought the government just banned alcohol during Prohibition? Nah, they also poisoned it. On purpose. To discourage bootlegging, federal agents added toxic chemicals like methanol to industrial alcohols, knowing full well that bootleggers would still sell them to the public. Estimates say up to 10,000 people died from the tainted booze. Not moonshine. Murder. The CIA's secret cancer weapon. During the Cold War, the CIA got real creative with assassination tactics. Guns disguised as pens, poisoned cigars, exploding seashells, but one of the most chilling, weaponized cancer. In the 1970s, a pathologist named Dr. Mary Sherman was working on cancer research in New Orleans. Then she turned up dead, stabbed, mutilated, and partially burned. The case was bizarre, and it got weirder when investigators uncovered a covert operation involving radiation experiments aimed at inducing fast-acting cancers. This tied into a real CIA plot to assassinate Fidel Castro using biological weapons. And yes, cancer was on the table. Years later, it came out that several political enemies of the U.S., including some in Latin America, died mysteriously of sudden, aggressive cancers. Coincidence? Maybe. But the paper trail says otherwise. COINTELPRO, the FBI's war on civil rights. In the 1960s, while the world praised Martin Luther King Jr. for his peaceful resistance, the FBI was doing something else behind closed doors, trying to destroy him. COINTELPRO, short for Counterintelligence Program, was an FBI operation to spy on, discredit, and sabotage civil rights leaders, anti-war activists, and anyone else they deemed radical. They bugged hotel rooms, they sent forged letters, they even tried to push MLK to commit suicide, sending him anonymous threats and blackmail. When these files were finally revealed in the 1970s, Americans were stunned. The FBI wasn't just watching political movements. It was actively trying to destroy them. This wasn't rogue agents. It was policy, signed off at the top. The Army sprayed chemicals on U.S. cities. In the 1950s and 60s, the U.S. Army tested biological weapons on civilians. Not enemies. Not overseas. Here. At home. One test involved spraying a zinc-cadmium sulfide compound, now known to be potentially toxic, over low-income housing projects in cities like St. Louis, Missouri. The military told residents it was just a smoke test for urban camouflage. In reality, it was an experiment to track how chemical agents might spread through a city during war. The worst part? Many of the test areas were predominantly black communities with zero informed consent. No warnings, no follow-ups, no accountability. And decades later, those same neighborhoods reported unusually high cancer rates. NSA mass surveillance. For years, privacy advocates warned that the government might be spying on every call, every email, every message we send. Most people rolled their eyes. Paranoid nonsense, right? Then in 2013, Edward Snowden, a contractor for the NSA, leaked thousands of classified documents and proved they were right. The government was collecting massive amounts of data, not just from suspected terrorists, but from everyone. Phone companies, tech giants, social media platforms, all feeding data into government servers under programs like PRISM and XKeyscore. It was the largest domestic surveillance operation in U.S. history, and no one voted for it. Snowden fled the country. The government charged him with espionage. And the public suddenly realized that 1984 wasn't just fiction. The Gulf of Tonkin incident wasn't what it seemed. In 1964, the U.S. used an attack on the USS Maddox in the Gulf of Tonkin to justify escalating the Vietnam War. Congress voted overwhelmingly to give the president full war powers. But here's the twist. That second attack never happened. Declassified documents later revealed that the supposed enemy fire was false radar readings, misunderstood sonar blips, or flat-out miscommunication. The government knew the incident was shaky at best, yet used it to plunge the U.S. into a decade-long war that killed over 58,000 Americans and millions of Vietnamese. A manufactured threat, a real war. And people still wonder why the public stopped trusting the Pentagon. Radiation experiments on pregnant women and children. In the 1940s and 50s, the U.S. government conducted secret experiments on some of the most vulnerable people in the country, without their knowledge. At Vanderbilt University, pregnant women were given what they were told were vitamin drinks. In reality, it was a radioactive cocktail, part of an experiment to see how radiation affected fetal development. Over 800 women were exposed. Some miscarried, some babies died. Others were born with major health problems that lasted a lifetime, and they never knew the truth until decades later when lawsuits uncovered what had happened. Even worse, similar experiments were run on orphans, mentally disabled children, and prison inmates, all in the name of science.